Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're cracking open the hidden mechanics of behavior. Have you ever wondered why certain habits just stick like glue, or why you literally can't stop checking your phone? Well, as we'll see, modern app developers and video game designers are essentially digital behavioral psychologists. They rely heavily on foundational psychology to invisibly shape our actions. Let's dive in.
Okay, here is the core mystery we're looking at today. Why on earth do we repeat behaviors that don't actually pay off? Or worse, behaviors that cause us actual distress? Common sense tells us we should just naturally stop doing things that make our lives worse, right? But whether it's a destructive habit or just this compulsive need to keep scrolling through a feed, we often find ourselves totally trapped in a loop. To understand why we keep going despite the negative consequences, we have to look way past our conscious intentions.
And to answer that, we have to turn to B.F. Skinner. Back in the 1930s, this pioneering psychologist coined the term operant conditioning. Now, the basic idea here is that behavior is completely driven by its payoff. If an action gets a rewarding consequence, boom, it gets stronger. If it doesn't, it fades away. Sounds incredibly simple, right? But, as you're about to see, variations of this one simple rule govern almost everything we do today.
Moving into Section 1, the mechanics of learning, let's start by laying out the basic rules of the game.
Okay, look at this breakdown. The absolute most crucial point to remember here is that negative reinforcement is absolutely not punishment. No, both of these mechanisms are designed to increase a behavior. Positive reinforcement adds a reward. Think of a rat getting a food pellet. Or in our world, think of habit-building apps. You finish a quick language lesson, and the app doesn't just quietly move on, right? It plays a triumphant chime, it flashes animations, and gives you digital coins. Or you hit a step goal on your smartwatch and get an explosion of digital confetti. In app design, this is literally called adding juice. That instant dopamine burst makes you want to come back. Negative reinforcement, on the other hand, removes something bad. A rat presses a level to turn off a painful shock. For us, in modern apps, that unpleasant stimulus is often the anxiety of losing a 100-day daily streak or that nagging fear of missing out. You open the app and poof, the anxiety is temporarily removed. You're conditioned to open the app every day just to maintain a state of comfort. In both cases, the behavior increases. Which brings us to a concept called shaping. This is how massive, complex behaviors are built step by step. You can't just wait for a pigeon to accidentally do a highly complex routine and then reward it. That would take forever. Instead, you reward tiny microsteps. Looking at a target, moving toward it, pecking it. Video games are absolute masters of shaping through their onboarding and tutorials. When you start a new game, they don't just throw you into a wildly complex boss fight. No way! First, you get a reward simply for moving your character. Then you're rewarded for jumping. By breaking down the skills into these tiny micro-rewarded steps, the game subtly shapes your behavior until you're an expert player and you never even felt overwhelmed.
All right, Section 2. Let's talk about the sheer power of variable rewards. So, what happens when you stop rewarding a behavior every single time? Take a look at the variable ratio schedule on this table. This is arguably the most powerful behavioral driver ever discovered. Because the reward comes after a completely unpredictable number of actions, it generates this relentless, incredibly persistent response rate. This is exactly why you infinitely scroll your social media feed. Think about it. Every pull to refresh is basically you pressing Skinner's lever. Most of the content is totally mundane, no reward. But occasionally, jackpot. You hit a hilarious theme, breaking news, or a notification that someone liked your post. Because you literally never know when the next reward is coming, you just keep scrolling indefinitely.
Now on to Section 3. Let's scale this up and look at what happens when things go too far with gaming and gambling disorders.
This quote hits the nail on the head. There's this vicious circle where positive and negative reinforcement actually team up. In conditions involving impulse control, you're initially pulled in by the positive high, right? The sheer euphoria and excitement of playing a game or making a bet. But eventually, you're pushed in by the negative reinforcement. You start engaging in the behavior simply to numb out emotional distress, to escape boredom, or to relieve the sheer discomfort of not doing the activity. It becomes this dual-engine trap that just keeps the loop spinning.
Gambling is basically the ultimate variable ratio schedule. The unpredictable payout drives a compulsion so incredibly strong that it can lead to devastating personal and financial ruin. At a certain point, the gambler isn't just playing for fun anymore. They're actively chasing their losses. A slot machine is, for all intents and purposes, a perfectly engineered Skinner box. Because that grand reward could be just one pull away, the behavior becomes highly resistant to stopping. The person literally has to increase their bets just to get the exact same psychological payoff.
And when these behaviors cross the line from a quirky habit into significant distress, that's when clinical manuals step in to map out the severity. They require clear evidence of functional impairment. So, a professional poker player taking controlled, calculated risks, not considered disordered. But it becomes a disorder when the individual completely loses control and the repetitive behavior severely compromises their personal, family, or work life.
We see this same loss of control in excessive gaming. Modern video games frequently feature things like digital loot boxes or randomized card packs. Players open them hoping for a rare cosmetic item or a powerful character. And because the items are distributed based on randomized algorithms, it mirrors Skinner's exact experiments perfectly to encourage players to keep playing, or paying. But when gaming becomes a maladaptive strategy, like if it's used specifically to avoid real-life social anxiety or to regulate a depressed mood, the game transforms into a powerful negative reinforcer. It temporarily removes painful feelings, completely conditioning the player to keep returning to the screen.
But there is good news. In Section 4, let's look at modifying maladaptive behavior. Fortunately for us, we aren't permanently hardwired to repeat our mistakes forever. If a behavior only exists because of its payoff, well, removing that payoff entirely will eventually cause the behavior to fade away. We call this extinction. In the lab, if the rat presses the lever and the food completely stops coming, eventually the pressing behavior drops right back down to zero. In clinical therapies, if we can identify the specific hidden reinforcers that are maintaining an unwanted behavior and systematically remove them, we essentially drain the behavior of its fuel.
We can also flip the script and use these exact same rules to rebuild healthy habits using something called token economies. This is a brilliant real-world application of operant conditioning. By giving out immediate, tangible tokens for positive actions, we bridge that really tricky gap between an action and a long-term goal. If you've ever felt totally motivated by closing your daily fitness rings on a smartwatch or earning those digital coins in a language app, you have successfully used a token economy to reinforce your own positive behavior. That immediate physical feedback makes the effort feel rewarding right in the moment.
So by selectively rewarding the good and totally ignoring the bad, we can essentially rewire behavioral responses. This is known as differential reinforcement. You see, punishment alone is often pretty ineffective because it usually just suppresses behavior temporarily. Instead, the strategy here is to heavily reinforce an incompatible, positive alternative while at the exact same time making absolutely sure the negative behavior gets zero reward. Over time, the healthy habit simply outcompetes the bad one.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want you to take a hard look at your own habits today. Ask yourself exactly who or what is controlling the levers in your life. We are all participating in operant conditioning every single day. The tech industry has essentially taken Skinner's 20th century laboratory insights and scaled them up for billions of screens. The next time you feel the sudden urge to check your phone or play just one more round of a game, pause for a second. You are experiencing operant conditioning in real time. So are you the one playing or are you being played? Thanks so much for joining me, and I hope this changes the way you look at the digital world around you.